Chapter 5 The Grove of Echoes. The forest opened into a clearing, the trees pulling back as if in reverence, their twisted branches giving way to something older, deeper. As Azural, Talvar, and Soraya entered the grove, the air grew dense, almost stifling, charged with a quiet intensity that sent a chill across Azural's skin. The trees here were different, massive, their silver leaves glinting faintly even in the dim light, and their roots gnarled and entwined, as though embracing secrets buried deep within the earth. "This is it," Soraya murmured, her voice hushed, as though the place demanded silence. "The Grove of Echoes. Here memories linger longer, and past lives can be glimpsed. It is a place of remembering and of reckoning." Azural's gaze swept the grove, a knot of unease tightening in her chest. She felt it, the weight of countless lives imprinted in the earth, memories pulsing like heartbeats, flickering on the edges of her awareness. Shadows seemed to cling to the air itself, a faint whisper of something old and watchful. "What exactly are we here for?" she demanded, her voice low but taut with mistrust. She didn't like the feeling of the place, how it seemed to know her somehow, as though it were watching her with ancient, judgmental eyes. Soraya's expression softened, her gaze almost sad. "To awaken the fire within you, to unlock what you have forgotten, and reclaim what you once wielded with purpose. But be warned, this grove will not give you answers freely. It will test you." Azural set her jaw, the fire simmering just below her skin. "I'm not afraid of tests." Talvar shifted, his gaze sweeping the perimeter, the mistrust clear in his stance. "We're trusting a place filled with magic and memories to just help her?" he asked, his voice laced with doubt. "This feels like a trap." Soraya met his gaze, her eyes steady. "The grove does not trap, it reveals, and for Azural it may be the only way to harness her fire before it consumes her." Azural's hands curled into fists, the fire flickering along her fingers in response to her defiance. She stepped toward the center of the grove, where a circle of ancient stones waited. Each one was worn smooth by time, etched with shifting symbols that seemed to dance in the dim light, like shadows across water. Her heartbeat quickened as she neared the circle, a mix of fear and anticipation filling her chest. "Stand within the circle," Soraya instructed, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Let the grove awaken what lies dormant within you. It will not be gentle, Azural, but if you are to understand your power, you must face what is hidden." Azural hesitated only a moment, glancing once at Talvar. His eyes met hers, caution shadowing his face. "I'll be here, if anything goes wrong." His voice trailed off, the promise of protection unspoken but clear. She gave a short nod, drawing strength from his steady presence, and stepped into the circle. The instant her feet touched the stone, a rush of energy surged up through her body, thrumming like a heartbeat, filling her veins with a strange electric heat. The symbols on the stones pulsed, their light brightening, casting a soft glow around her. Mist swirled up from the ground, curling around her ankles, rising slowly until it obscured everything beyond the circle. Soraya and Talvar faded from sight, leaving her alone. Azural took a steadying breath, her senses thrumming with awareness. And then she heard it, a faint whisper, rising from the depths of the grove, words she didn't recognize but that resonated deep within her. The mist thickened, wrapping around her like a shroud, and the world shifted, blurring at the edges. Suddenly she was no longer in the grove. She stood on the edge of a battlefield, the ground scorched and broken, littered with the fallen. A deep crimson sky loomed overhead, heavy with the weight of impending doom. Flames flickered in the distance, dark and ominous, casting eerie shadows over the devastation. She looked down and saw her hands, covered in blood, her own or someone else's she couldn't say. A surge of rage and grief tore through her, raw and wild, almost overwhelming. A sound, cold and mocking, echoed through the air. Azural's head snapped up, and there across the field stood a figure draped in shadow, his face partially obscured, but his eyes, She knew those eyes, dark and cruel, filled with a malice that clawed at her very soul. Vuva. The name surfaced in her mind like a curse, filling her with a hatred so deep it felt like a wound that would never heal. He had done this to her. She could feel it in every fibre of her being. He was the reason she had been reborn in flames, her life fractured and scattered like ashes on the wind. Vuva's voice drifted over the battlefield, mocking and venomous. You rise again, Draconis ignis aeterni, but fire is only ever meant to destroy, and you are bound to that fate. Azural's fists clenched, the fire within her raging, her pulse a drumbeat of fury. I am more than your curse, she spat, her voice laced with defiance. Vuva's laugh echoed, a sound that chilled her to her core. Are you? He asked, his tone dripping with contempt. Your flames are nothing but a weapon, a tool to be wielded. You cannot control it. You will burn everything you touch. The words seared through her like a wound, piercing her resolve. She wanted to shout, to deny it, but the rage within her was already churning, pushing against her control, a firestorm waiting to break free. She could feel it, wild and untamed, a force she could not contain. It would consume her if she unleashed it, yet she felt powerless to stop it. Fight it, a voice whispered, soft and strong. It was not Vuva's voice, but another's, one she recognized, though she could not place it. The fire does not own you. You are its master. Do not let it break you. Azural gritted her teeth, focusing on the voice, letting it anchor her as the fire surged within her, burning her from the inside. She reached for control, straining against the power, feeling it slip through her fingers like water, yet she refused to yield. Her anger became resolve, her rage sharpened to a singular purpose. She closed her eyes, feeling the fire coalesce in her hands, fierce and bright. The flames grew steady, shifting from blue to white-hot, the heat intense yet contained. She opened her eyes, the battlefield fading, leaving her standing within the grove once more, her hands ablaze with a fire that no longer felt wild but focused, a part of her. Soraya's voice broke through the silence. You have faced it then, she said, her gaze unwavering. You have glimpsed the fire within, and its strength. Now you must learn to harness it. Azural's breaths were heavy, her pulse still racing. She extinguished the flames, feeling the weight of what she had seen, the dark certainty that Vuva's words had held. Yet there was also something else, a strength, a power that had not been there before. She met Soraya's gaze, the fire within her steady, her voice low but resolute. Vuva, he has to be stopped. I don't know who he truly is or what he wants, but he is a threat to me, and perhaps to more than just me. Soraya inclined her head, her expression thoughtful. Vuva is powerful, a master of shadows and illusions, a force of corruption. He seeks dominion over all, and he will stop at nothing to achieve it. You are a threat to him, Azural. Your fire, your rebirth, it stands in opposition to everything he is. Talvar stepped closer, his eyes still filled with doubt, but also a glint of respect. Then it seems we have a common purpose. If Vuva is as dangerous as you say, we'll need more than just fire to stop him. Allies, tactics, something to keep us from being snuffed out. Soraya's expression darkened. He is not without his followers. Even now they seek you, tracking your flames. We must move quickly if we are to evade them and prepare for the fight ahead. Azural's gaze hardened, a new resolve settling over her. She clenched her fists, feeling the warmth of her fire simmering within her, waiting for her command. Vuva's words still echoed in her mind, but she would not let them define her. She was more than her fire. She was a weapon, yes, but one forged to protect, to reclaim what had been taken, and to find herself again. Then let them come, she said, her voice fierce and unyielding. I will face Vuva, and I will burn away his shadow. They stood together in the grove's fading light, a fragile alliance bound by purpose and danger, each knowing that their path led into darkness. But Azural felt her fire steady, her heart resolute. She was ready to face whatever waited, to embrace the flame within her and confront the darkness that sought to consume her. As they turned to leave, a chill wind swept through the grove, carrying with it the faintest echo of a whisper, one that only Azural seemed to hear. "Draconis ignis aeterni," it murmured. "Your fire will change the fate of all."